Going to re-adjourn, and next on the agenda is Task 5 Mixed-Use Zone Project, and looks like we have Eric and Barry here, and we got extra time, so.
Yes, we're really excited about that.
Sorry.
This has never happened to us.
Add some stuff to the agenda. We need.
And do we have Andre back on the phone?
I believe so, yeah.
Great.
Good evening, Eric Engstrom and Barry Manning here again to speak about the mixed-use project. Tonight, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to focus on resolving the rest of the code directional questions tonight, and then we'll come back next week with, and hopefully be as efficient as Deborah just was in getting through the mixed-use mapping. We're setting up a couple of those map discussions tonight with preliminary ideas, and then we'll follow through with more of the site-specific. Similar to what Deborah just did, we have an agenda that's following the once again revised memo that's sort of now a serial novel, but it's the latest version with the remaining items that you haven't yet covered. And we're going to go through those in order, but there's a few of them that we expect to have discussion, and a few of them hopefully that we're going to just say we believe you all are on the same page and call the question without discussion. In particular, the ones that I think we anticipate and want to focus a little more discussion on is the first one we think we need to talk about, but it probably can be brief, 6.2. 7.1 E, F, and G, staff wanted to make sure we discuss a little more in depth because we have a proposal for a substantive change to the structure of the mixed-use proposal in response to that we want to make sure you've looked at carefully. And I understand that the chair and some others would like us to talk about A and B as well under that topic.
And D.
And D, okay.
Sorry.
So
I'll be
there's a lot of
really
topics
quick on
under
it.
7.1.
Are there any other?
The other
besides
ones,
just what I've said on 7.1 items people want to talk about, which is really leaves us with the lead. Well,
we'll call the question as we go through again.
Perfect,
In case
okay.
But I wanted to highlight the ones that staff is focusing on. We also think it's important to touch base on 7.5 because that's kind of an issue that hadn't been brought up before. We want to make sure we get clear direction there. And then because we have some time, we'd like to talk a little bit about our philosophy of where we applied the design overlay and try and get back to that question of the request in Sellwood for the design overlay, and that gets into some mapping. Topic 11, which is in the memo, we didn't highlight for discussion. It's more of an informational response to some questions that were raised about what the differences between EX and CM3 are, and so we've tried to provide that information, but if there are questions, we can address that at the end of tonight's time if we have time.
perfect.
So to get into the agenda then,
Oh, sorry. Looks like.
No, I apologize, I was out. So I do have a comment on 7.3 Urban Forestry Commission issues.
okay, when we get to
It's
that,
simple.
we'll discuss it.
Yeah.
And do we need to do conflicts just once again for the fun of it? So let's go around real quick and get to hear about your conflicts.
Teresa St. Martin. I own a commercial property in the Mississippi District.
Eli Spivak, I own a commercial property in Coley, but this is not mapping issues right here. So I have a conflict, but I can participate.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Mike, I like trees.
Oh, you can't vote,
I
Mike.
got to be
know.
upfront about it.
But are the trees paying you, Mike?
Yes, actually.
In dividends with you there.
Ecosystem services.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think it's worth, just on that topic, it's worth mentioning, I think these were disclosures of potential perceptions of conflict, not necessarily actual conflict, particularly the
City
tree
attorney
issue.
thanks you for the distinction.
So we'll start with item 6.2 or topic 6.2, which was looking at the building orientation and setback standards that apply to commercial development in the CE zone. And as you recall, this is the zone where you are allowed to have more auto-oriented or auto-accommodating uses, but as we said before, despite that, there are still some fairly stringent orientation and pedestrian access and setback and standards that apply, and Barry will talk about that.
Nope. Not too much more to cover on that, Barry Manning, planning staff. We have building orientation standards in the CE zone that are designed to kind of bridge the realm between pedestrian orientation and auto accommodation at the same time. We do provide for buildings, the code would call for buildings to be built fairly close to the street, within a 10-foot setback for a portion of the building, oriented to corners in most situations. It would provide opportunities for parking, so there's not a limitation on the amount of parking, aside from the notion that you can't build more than 50% of your linear frontage with vehicle areas, which is a current code standard that we have right now in Portland, so we're maintaining that standard. You did hear a lot of testimony from, primarily from the retail task force and some representatives of supermarkets that the CE zone building orientation standards were difficult to work with for them. And so we did work with them a little bit to look at, ways that we might be able to augment that, but came to the conclusion that, after looking at a number of sites, that we think that the standards that we have now are workable in most situations. So that's 6.2A. And then 6.2B, I'm just going to move on to that just so you can have both of them, we can discuss them, was a request from, again, a retail task force, International Council of Shopping Centers, organizations asking for, and Safeway at Albertsons, I think, as well, asking for a relaxation of the size threshold for retailers that would qualify for the alternative setback, which would allow retailers to set quite far back on the site and then build pads up front with a parking lot between the main building and the street. As you'll recall, I'm going to show that slide here. It kind of looks like this diagram here, which I apologize, I only have this one diagram of it, but you can see that there's a building, large retail store back here, and the street up here with pads here, and that the building could be set back as long as the parking lot was designed in a way that allowed for future development and infill. The threshold for that standard, which is currently in our code, is a 100,000 square foot retail use to qualify for utilization of that standard. When we first talked to the Retail Task Force and others, they said that that was a threshold that was fairly high, and we looked at ways to reduce that. The staff proposal was to reduce that threshold to 60,000, which is a little bit bigger than most grocery stores, but not as big as a Target or some of the very large retailers. You heard testimony asking to reduce that to 40 or 45,000, but we think that 60,000 is a pretty significant reduction from the 100, and we're asking you to stick with the staff proposal on that one, and in fact on both of those. So that's the discussion that we have on this from
And
staff.
The photograph we brought is just the photograph of a grocery store that is built to the current standards. The parking lot in this case is
Off to the side, down
side on
Hawthorne
the other
and
side, but
there's also some tuck under parking here.
the point being, I think that you can build grocery stores and meet the current standards, and so we think that you should retain those current standards.
Any
Are we
comment?
doing nods again?
Just any comments, discussion?
Right, I should mention that on
I
all
guess
these
kinda nods.
on all these topics, it's nods. What's going to happen is we're going to use these nods to go back and finalize the direction of code that we will bring back the actual language to you in a couple weeks in advance of the 23rd, and then you'll get some time to look at it and see that it matches your expectations, and then there'll be a final vote on it on the 23rd.
And in this case, we're proposing no change to the language, so you'd see the same language you saw in the proposed document.
Andre, did you want to say something?
Yeah, on 6B, so where would those sites, the majority of those sites or a lot of those sites be located that would get the reduction?
You know, it really, Andre, this is Barry. It really depends on the proposal. It would take a fairly large site to accommodate a retailer of the size of 60,000, but that's not limited to eastern or western neighborhoods particularly. You could find sites in inner neighborhoods as well that have those kinds of sites. In fact, I think the Fred Meyer on Chavez and Hawthorne is well over that size threshold. Not that they would use this standard, but there are sites in inner Portland that would accommodate that. But really the key there is the building over 60,000 square feet. Is that retailer that large?
And again, these options.
The redevelopment of an existing site then would trigger this.
Correct. If you're redeveloping with a use that's over the 60,000 square foot threshold, then you're allowed to use this alternate standard, which staff wouldn't view this as a lesser standard. It's just a different way to arrange the site for a large site. It requires an internal circulation system and sets up the site to be more urban than it otherwise would be if with a large, more suburban model.
Any other questions? Nope, I think we can move on. Thanks, Barry.
Okay.
Eric?
So the next grouping is topic 7, and there's a bunch of subtopics. So we'll start out with 7.1A, and you want to start with 7.1A since that's
Don't we have 6.2 CDEF?
Those were,
We already,
The alternative.
yeah, those were alternatives or options if you didn't agree with the staff
Okay, thank you.
recommendations. So,
Sorry.
yeah.
Good work.
All right. So I guess we are on 7.1, is that correct?
7.1, and I believe I heard that the chair would like to talk about A.
Correct.
Yeah.
Do you want me to, do you want
Would
to
you
give your
describe it
explanation first?
Sure. I'll just explain how we got to where we got and what the regulation is. So currently in our mixed-use zones and in our highest density multi-dwelling zones, we don't require any open area for residents. There's really no set aside for that. And that was one of the things that came out of a lot of our discussions with the community and with others and other stakeholders about what would be an improvement to our mixed-use zones when we're expecting to have a lot of residential built in these areas. We looked around at some peer cities examples and models to find numbers that and quantities of open area that were required for different kinds of residential uses, and they really varied from what Portland had now, which was 0, to up to 100 square feet per unit. That was a negotiable number that could work its way down. So there was a wide range. We currently have a requirement of 48 square feet minimum per unit in our lower density R1 and R2 zones, for instance. So we fell back to that, and we asked our consultant in the early conceptual phase of the modeling to model that to see if that was a workable number, given the FARs and the allowances that we were expecting. And their initial findings were that the 48 square feet looked like a workable number. You'd have to be a little bit creative about how you arrange that open space. Oftentimes, it ended up being rooftop decks and things of that nature, but that there was a feasible way, at least in the modeling they did, which admittedly was early modeling without a lot of detail, but they felt that there was a way to do that. So we've maintained that number throughout the process, and that's where we landed. But it was really based on a look at nationally what people were doing, and then coming back to our own code and saying, well, is our existing number a workable number?
So the reason I asked to pull this agenda item in particular is I do support requiring open space. I've worked in many jurisdictions and always had to do it elsewhere, and find it interesting that Portland doesn't do it. That being said, what I'm concerned about is the 48 square feet, and this is only an issue due to our block size. When I do work in Seattle and Los Angeles and San Francisco, providing 100 square feet or whatever their requirements are quite easy to accommodate. And when I've tested this on a half-block project, we couldn't meet it. We had a roof deck that and this is getting really technical, but you're kind of limited to about 250 square feet now due to some exiting rules, and the fire marshal is really starting to crack down on the roof decks that we've been providing throughout the city and a lot of platform or podium type buildings. Which means your next option is you provide amenity rooms, and I would say at least all the projects we've worked on, we still do that, and these typically tend to be shared kitchens. We also provide fitness centers, and in this half-block project, we've got a fitness center, an amenity room, and a rooftop deck, and a little courtyard space, and I still can't hit the requirement at 48, which would mean what we're not doing on this particular project is provide balconies, and we certainly could do that to get there, but about 3/4 of the units would then need some type of, it's just a balcony. And of course, there's a requirement for what size that balcony has to be. So where I guess my amendment would be is to amend this down to 36 square feet per unit. It's still going to be a struggle with some particular sites, but like I said, I think it's kind of just balancing.
So that the 48 you haven't been able to pencil out on central city blocks, right? Because if you go further out east, the blocks are bigger.
It's the 200. So yes, if you're going to stick to a 200 by 200 size half block, it starts getting a little tough potentially. So yeah, a bigger block, or if you've got the full block, it's much easier to meet. So where the struggle comes in is a half block, and if you can think about it, and a quarter block starts to become even more difficult. It's just a matter of blocks, and so I guess that's why I proposed 36.
So are the setbacks we're talking about an additional problem with that?
They can add to it. So when you do a step back or a step down, and I think we're at this point, we've got step downs included in the proposal, not step backs. That certainly creates opportunities for open space and certainly helps with it. But you've got to remember that what I'm trying to say here, not all of that area is going to count, I guess is what I'm getting at, potentially, depending on the size of the step back. If you're going to make it used for a wide variety of people and take all of the area, then we have what's called assembly rules and exiting rules issues. So what's going to end up happening is you're going to make those into small patio spaces off of each of the units, which certainly is awesome. But that also adds additional cost in the fact that you've got to create them as patios. So there's a little bit of a trade-off is all I'm getting at. And so you most likely would, and I would hope anybody who's doing a step down would use that space, but they certainly at this point have the option to maybe not and kind of pool their resources and dollars into shared community type spaces on their project.
So what's the impetus? Why would we go from 48 to 36? Is there nothing in between, or is that just a normal step down?
I'd leave it to Catherine to talk about the increment there, but
It's just, if you think about it, it's just a 6x6 size space. It's kind of, I'm not saying it's ideal. I'm not saying it's the perfect number, so I'd be open to other discussions on it. It's kind of, I guess, a compromise out there because I certainly do support the notion. I guess I'm just looking for a little bit of relief.
And I believe one of our minimum dimensions was 4x6. Is that correct, Barry?
Yeah.
So I think we were trying to stick with increments of that could be
6 makes sense.
that mathematically would work off that. So that
So is there any logic in making the standard a function of the floor plate of the project area? So if you have a full block, you get 48, you have to do 48, but if you're in a half block, it goes down to 36?
That was going to be a question I was going to ask if it could differ.
I think there's certainly that potential, just gets more complex to
From
then
a code perspective, yes.
actually implement.
or you could use it by units, number of units too. There's that. But
For what it's worth, and again, I can only speak to the projects we've been working on. All of our full block projects are above the 48 square feet. It's just when we start getting to the smaller projects.
Andre may have a comment.
Can the developer ask for an adjustment off 48? So if they were short, I don't know, let's say they were short 48 feet out of the total project, did they ask for that adjustment?
The reason why they couldn't.
Yeah, usually with the development review process, you can ask for an adjustment to a standard unless it says adjustments are prohibited. Sometimes you can also get a design review modification depending on the whether the thing you're asking for contributes to the design. If there's something you're doing to improve the design, but a negative side effect is that it reduces this, you could maybe justify that.
Couple quick questions. Is there a minimum unit count or building size that has to meet this standard? I mean,
No, we didn't set a threshold for unit count or building size to meet the standard. We would assume that it would apply to all sizes of buildings.
So I'm doing a duplex. Okay. No. And you mentioned the adjustment. What do you, to do an adjustment, you have to address the purpose for the requirement. What is the purpose for requiring open space?
I mean, I'll jump in. I would say it's certainly an amenity, but I would say just for people to be able to actually get out, use the outdoors, have a space, community spaces where people come together, make any type of living situation, especially when you're sharing it with other people, I think more tenable, more
I get that, but
healthy.
I'm thinking, but we're saying balconies count, so a private balcony counts towards the open space, but as you just described it, is that really?
It's air. Well, it's air.
It's air.
It's
You
being
can
able to get
go
fresh
out on
air.
your balcony. We've
See,
at a
they
price.
have balconies.
Balconies are expensive in the overall scheme of things.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm comfortable with Catherine's suggestion. She's persuaded me.
Me too.
I don't like the reduction myself, but I see this as an opportunity, and I'm thinking of Paris for some reason, where there's huge amount of density, and there are these private spaces that really make that density acceptable. That it feels great to walk through, even though it's a private situation. There's actually public benefit from it as well, and I'm just wondering why we couldn't have. I mean, it's more complicated perhaps, but why couldn't you do a whether you want to call it a sliding scale, depending on the size of the.
I think I would look to staff to see if they're comfortable with looking at an option that perhaps allows some relief for small block projects.
Or maybe distinguish them by pattern area or something of that nature, yeah. We could look at that, I guess.
Yeah, I think on the larger sites arguably on the larger sites in East Portland, it would be easier to meet the 48. On the smaller, especially when you get down into quarter block or we do see some 5,000 square foot sites literally being developed with mixed use now, and that might be harder. So maybe there's a cutoff. Both the 36 and the 48 are within the realm of what other cities have done from our research. So I think it's a judgment call.
I like the tiered approach, particularly if we'll get greater open space. Oh, I like the tiered approach, and according to size of the plot or
Developable area.
Thank you. It's getting that hour. Yeah.
So we're split.
Well,
I would support
I
that,
actually
too.
would support looking at some sort of amendment that would look at a tiered approach.
Okay.
Looking at block size or pattern
Sounds like
area.
there's a general thumbs up for that approach. And
So can we propose 48 square feet per unit unless you're at a 10,000 square foot lot or less, in which case it's 36? I mean, is that along the lines of what we're talking
I guess
about?
I'd like staff to kind of
Propose
look at
something
some
from staff.
code language and then see what it says.
Guys, one last question. As you looked around at what other cities do, are balconies typically allowed, private balconies are allowed as part of your open space?
Yeah.
Some of them.
So you have to almost do that to get there?
Well, again, if so for instance, Los Angeles has 100 square feet per unit. Well, they tend to do big, huge pool decks, and you're done. You don't have to have a balcony.
Right.
Then again, you get to a smaller site and you start adding balconies to hit that requirement. So you can imagine it dictates kind of how the architecture forms and starts looking within a city and all kinds
I'm just thinking, I'm agreeing with Mike, there's sort of an urban architecture that's nice when you have breezeways and courtyards. I don't know how much balconies contribute to that sort of open urban area, but never mind.
I love people watching, so if there's people out on balconies.
Yeah, but I happen to know you don't have a balcony, do you?
Well, it depends. I mean, if they're green, green is green. And the other day I was in the Pearl looking out of a window, and there were hummingbirds 15 stories up because they had vegetation there. And it had a positive impact on the folks living in that particular structure.
the balconies allow you to have a tomato plant or a basil plant outside, and you can.
We all love balconies. Never mind.
I'd prefer something on the ground, frankly, that everybody could appreciate, but I don't think we're going to get into that.
As an equity issue, can I also ask a question of whether you would want to go higher than 48 square feet for portions of East Portland that may have very large block sizes and have not enough parks right now? And there's a lack of access to parks compared to many other places in the city. So again, staff is going to look at me with one of those looks like, now she's giving us more. But
It's also a cost.
I
mean, if you're going to.
Well, we could certainly explore that, and if we think it's viable in some areas, we could include it in our proposal. It's fairly easy for us to yank something out once we've written it. It's harder to write it and add
Right.
it, so.
Yep. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay. So we're going to move. So we're going to look at a tiered approach is the direction we've got for that, and potentially set it up based on lot size or pattern area, I think is what we're going to do. Okay. On item B, staff had proposed a 10-foot building setback on civic corridors in eastern and western pattern areas. And this was designed to address impacts of these wide, high traffic volume streets and allow for an enhanced pedestrian space and provide an opportunity for also a landscaped or green edge to those buildings. We had a urban design work that was done earlier in the comp plan process that talked about different approaches to those large civic corridors in eastern and western areas that might be treated somewhat differently than inner pattern area streets that were much more urban in flavor. And so this was the implementation approach that we looked at. When we did our neighborhood walks, we did many walks on these, I can't say many walks, a couple of walks on some of those larger high-volume arterials, 82nd Avenue, Outer Division Street, and kind of got a sense of the pedestrian environment and the environment that one might be living in if there was a building nearby that had residential units. And the conclusion that we came to as staff and the community suggested was that we think about doing these setbacks. So that's what's proposed here. Only on a limited number of those places. It would be on Outer Division, Outer Stark, 122nd Avenue, and on the west side it would be Barber, where this 10-foot setback, but those are the civic corridors in those areas.
Not 82nd?
Not 82nd in this particular case. And the reason we chose not to do 82nd in this particular case is that there's a ODOT required setback from center line in some of those areas, not a building setback. So that does a little bit about, creating at least a more consistent kind of streetscape. And staff concluded that 82nd was on balance more of an inner Portland pattern area street than an outer Portland pattern area street. The lot and block sizes on 82nd Avenue are much more aligned with the lot and block sizes of other inner Portland neighborhoods than they were with the outer divisions and the outer Starks. So we went in that direction.
Is this 10 feet measured from curb edge?
No, this would be from property line back.
Okay.
Essentially from the edge of the sidewalk that would be built.
So traditionally, our sidewalk requirement is more on the order of 12 feet for these kind of streets. And if you assume we've dedicated all that to the right-of-way, this would result in more of a 20-foot pedestrian or some combination of sidewalk and landscaping in that area.
Just because I have to ask, does it count towards open space?
It could, yes. Yes, it could, yes. There's a benefit there, yeah. And I've got some
And tree
slides.
requirements.
I have some slides of some buildings in those areas that I can show you if you'd like.
Nameless.
Let me just show you a few of the slides. So this is the slide, sorry, you have to turn around, that we used in our document. This is PCC on 82nd, ironically, one of the areas that's not included in this. But you can see how the sidewalk is where the pedestrians are walking now, and the area to the left of that is the 10 or so foot setback. In this particular case, it allowed for a double row of trees in this case and a little bit of a building setback. This is PCC Cascade on 82nd Avenue. So it provided for a pretty pleasant environment, and a lot of people felt that that was a really good thing on some of these larger streets. There's other conditions that we were looking at, and I've only got a few examples of maybe ones that we thought were examples of why we would want this setback were situations like this where you have residential development within 5 feet or so of the sidewalk on a very high volume traffic street, or situations like this where we had a 3 or 5 foot setback at maximum on a fairly high volume street, as opposed to this situation on 122nd Leander Court, which had a more generous setback from the street. So these are the examples we were thinking about when we suggested this regulation. And one last
Also
slide.
some field work where we stood out there, and it is a fairly uncomfortable situation, even with a 12-foot sidewalk, with the volume of some of those traffic that's on some of those streets.
And Outer Division has a traffic volume of somewhere in the neighborhood of 40,000 cars a day in some places. So it's a very high volume street. And the last slide I'll show you is even a commercial building that was built to a very low setback standard has a very tight feel against the sidewalk. And it's probably a combination of needing more generous sidewalks and the right-of-way standards being corrected, but it's also a fairly urban environment for that situation. So that was the rationale for it, and we again applied it on those 4 arterial streets.
So, a couple questions. So greenery is not a requirement.
Not a requirement. Some hardscaping is a requirement because we wanted to ensure that there were good connections to the storefronts or to the residences and things of that nature on those areas. So
We don't want it to be a blank wall with a row of arborvitae shrubs.
Right.
I don't know.
Eli?
Oh, yeah. So I would. go in the direction of including greenery, but understanding, yeah, you don't want that shrubbery, just a wall of it. Another point, so what if you did increase that 10-foot setback? Would that just still be too isolating? Like if it was 15 feet setback on those big corridors?
And again, what our staff's thinking on that was that 15 feet, even more setback area. These are fairly wide right-of-ways in the first place, so our concern was, widening the right-of-way even more than it is right now. We have some places 90 or 110 feet of right-of-way. It's a pretty big street. We felt that setting back 15 feet might be maybe more aggressive than we thought was appropriate at this time. It's a bigger piece of property a bigger portion of the property that you can't use for building. But we did feel that the buffering a little bit from the street was appropriate, so that's where we landed at 10. The code does allow for up to 20, so if you're the developer, you have some flexibility to do more if you want.
I guess I have a little bit philosophical difference of opinion on this one, that I feel like as a pedestrian, I feel more comfortable when there isn't this wide open expanse. You have a 12-foot wide sidewalk already, and then you have maybe 10 to 20 more feet before you get to the building. That just seems like too much to me. And so I feel like the buildings, even in some of the example, the one on Stark, I'm biased, I worked on that project, but I think it works well being close to Stark, and if those areas have a chance to become pedestrian friendly down the road, I'd rather not have the buildings that far back. That's my thought on it.
I think staff generally agrees with what Eli said for the inner neighborhoods where the streets tend to be narrower and the traffic volume's lower, but we found ourselves leaning this way on those bigger streets in the outer neighborhoods just because of the sheer volume and speed of the traffic. It felt uncomfortable to us to be that close. And in a lot of cases, they don't have on-street parking, so you're literally within 5 feet of the speeding traffic.
So there's, a couple things that go through my head, and one is, the wider we make it, perhaps only encourages more speeding traffic. There tends to be a notion when things are a little more compressed, traffic slows down. So I'm a little concerned with that. I'm a little bit concerned about the pedestrian environment you create when you put a landscape buffer between the sidewalk and the building.
That's not the requirement.
Well, I know it's not a requirement, but it's confusing the way it reads. So if we're more so trying to encourage like the double row of trees, I can kind of wrap my head around that a little bit better, the PCC example. Although I see what you're showing me with the kind of the residential and creating a buffer there. But so I guess I'm struggling with how to explain to somebody when maybe one is more encouraged than another.
Yeah, we talked about as staff being more prescriptive with what you do in that space, and we veered away from that in the end because we thought that ultimately it was maybe an opportunity for some design, and there would be some opportunity for stormwater management in that area, and we didn't want to be too prescriptive, but we did think about that a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm also concerned that it's setting up a little bit more of a, and granted, maybe these are transitional zones, and I need to get my head kind of into exactly what we're talking about, but a suburban environment that's not as pedestrian friendly in some respects, right? Because you're just kind of walking now through a really big road with some landscaping, versus having some interest with the building next to you. And perhaps that's just my bias of liking to walk next to buildings. But so I'm struggling with it in general.
I think that this is the way we were thinking of it is there's maybe looking at some European models where they may be suburban streets, but they're built very urban, but they do tend to have a much wider sidewalk environment than what we require in Portland. And an alternate approach is to require more dedication for the right-of-way, but that comes with its own legal challenges. And so this seemed like a middle ground approach to get to that kind of vision for some of those larger streets.
We did assume that folks could, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you could have activities in that 10-foot setback as well. You just couldn't have a building in that area. So you could have, a patio or something of that nature in that area. I think I'd have to double check to make sure that the code would allow for that, but I think it does provide the flexibility for that in some of the hardscaped areas particularly.
I'm worried people are going to take the easy way out and just put a bunch of low-growing shrubs. That's my concern, because there's kind of too many options. Teresa and then Chris.
What is the current step back requirement?
Right now, one wouldn't be required to do any setback from the street at all. The maximum setback is 10 feet for 50% of the building, essentially.
So right now, we essentially require half the building to be
Close to the street.
close to 0 to the street.
0 to 10 from the street. Yeah.
Right.
And that was because,
For the reasons Eli articulated. I think,
Okay.
Yeah, and that's one of our current, it's very much reflective of our current standard in the CS and CM zones that are mostly applied in Inner Portland, but we also have those in the EX and CX zones that are applied in Inner Portland and in Outer Portland as well.
So I just want to refresh our memory on how we got this on the list. I think I had flagged testimony from the same community member we did not name earlier, who had testified on this, and in subsequent communication, he sort of described the cruise way effect of what we don't want to have. I think that's that low shrubbery and nothing else. So I guess my sense is if we're going to retain this, we should be more prescriptive about what happens in that setback.
I think I was hearing Andre asked to say something too.
My concern is 82nd, and it's relative to, PBOT still has a proposal to assume 82nd Avenue, and there's still a transit plan on 82nd Avenue in terms of alternative transportation, potentially, other than a bus. So how does that change your view of the setback not being applied to 82nd, I guess? If it then has the high capacity transit and the city owns it versus ODOT, you don't have the reliance on the ODOT center line setback.
I think our thinking on 82nd was more tied to the parcel patterns behind it, that typically the parcels on 82nd are an inner neighborhood block pattern where you have 200-foot deep blocks and 50 by 100 or even 50 by 100 parcels often. And so whereas 122nd Avenue, sometimes the parcels are 200 or 300 feet deep by themselves. And so it started to become a bigger slice from their development viability. The future of transit on that street is going to deal with whether we need to ask for more right-of-way through dedication, but I think we were avoiding the additional setback in this case because of the parcel sizes.
That's correct. Yeah.
Would there ever in the future be the potential of getting parking along those streets as another method of slowing down traffic and kind of creating this transitional zone?
Well, I would say, I can't speak for PBOT. I'd like to, but I cannot. I think that's a matter that could be decided, if the city ends up, with control over the right-of-way of that street. I would say that the outer streets that we were talking about, the Division, the Stark, and the 122nd, they do have areas where they do have on-street parking and areas where they don't have on-street parking. So it's a combination on those streets, and those are all city streets, I believe.
And although it could go the other way too, I believe in some parts of Outer Division, there's a conversation about taking the on-street parking away to accommodate the dedicated transit lane for the high-capacity transit. So you may have it go both ways through PDOT planning.
So outer division would be considered after 82nd?
I think we drew the line at I-205 is where we really said that's the real break point. And this was in the pattern area standards. These are pattern area standards, and they're we wanted to make them easy to implement for BDS so that they had a clear indication of where they would apply and where they would not apply without doing very detailed maps, so they could refer to a generalized map. And our decision was that the pattern really, or our perspective was that the pattern really changes after I-205. You have a very different pattern once you pass beyond that.
I think this is why I'm not as happy about the pattern area approach, because we get different rules to different parts of town. That I think we've done some good planning and inherited some good planning for the closer in areas, and I guess I'd like to see those opportunities afforded to folks in what are called the west and east pattern areas, even if they're not starting from good starting points.
Okay, so I don't know that I have clear direction, so I'm guessing you don't. That's not a good point, Eli. I guess the question is, does anybody want to make an amendment or a proposal with regards to this in any way, shape, or form that's clear.
So I think there are three choices, right? There's require the setback as described currently, don't require the setback, or require the setback with more prescriptive design standards of how it's used, right? So I don't know if either of those any of those gets a majority.
Quick question. How many streets are we talking about?
4 streets. Barber on the west side, Division east of I-205, Stark east of I-205, and 122nd for the both north and northeast and southeast 122nd.
Well, I'd say that if we got rid of that exception, then you could still go 10 feet back, right? Because it would be 0 to 10 would be your range.
You do have that allowance, yes.
So I would propose first to do a little check to see about just dropping this exception, so you would be the same throughout the city, but you would you might opt to go to 10 feet if you're worried about buildings being too close. And then the fallback vote I would check would be what Chris just proposed as go with the SAP proposal, but have a more prescription about what happens in that nether land in between that's privately owned.
I'm confused by what you.
So my first proposal is to, I guess, to reject the staff recommendation, which would mean that it would be 0 foot minimum setback, but up to 10 foot. Not 10 foot, 0 minimum, 10 foot maximum.
Minimum maximum.
The general
Citywide.
standard, yeah.
So basically, that would be my first proposal, is to say, let's just make it 0 minimum, 10 maximum citywide. And then if people don't like that one, then I would fall back to what Chris suggested, that we go with the SAP proposal.
Maybe take these one at a time. And then
Yeah. Okay. I'm letting people know there's another, but I guess I'm heading towards the middle ground if people want to preserve that distinction.
So 0-10 is currently what's in place for a lot of these large corridors, or
Yeah.
anywhere.
Everywhere except for
Anywhere within the
citywide.
city, you can set
You
up
can't be
to 10
further
feet
than
back,
10.
unless you're in a planned district or something that really restricts that further, yeah.
And what are people generally doing?
Well, in inner neighborhoods, that you see a lot of 0 setback.
or sometimes 3 just to keep
yeah.
the doors opening and things.
You know, and in outer neighborhoods, it's often a challenge to get folks to build close to the sidewalks when they would prefer to have a large parking lot in front of their building.
And they might go 20 on this proposal, right?
Well,
They can't
they
now.
could,
This
in
they
this
could.
proposal, up to 20, yes, for a portion of the building.
But
yeah.
you still wouldn't be able to put parking in front of the building.
correct.
But you could landscape a portion of it.
Yeah, but you see a variable range. I mean, I showed you a few examples in East Portland in those slides of the residential that is built within 5 feet of the property line there.
Okay, so maybe take your first one.
So my first proposal is to just
Be
drop
consistent.
section B.
Yeah. So do we want to just kind of head nods around here on this? Support?
And a 0 foot,
0 to
0
10.
minimum,
10
10 foot
max.
maximum setback. is
From the
basic-
sidewalk.
Yeah, so there'll still be
From the
12 feet of sidewalk, right?
Yeah, setback from the property line or essentially the sidewalk, yes.
There may be 12 feet of sidewalk if that's the standard, but
Yeah.
we don't always achieve that, but
Yeah.
that's the standard.
And as a part of that, you're still allowed to put landscaping within that 10 foot if you choose to set it back.
Correct, but you can't landscape the entire portion of it, so you can't just have
Right.
a moat of landscaping around your building.
There are standards that are already in the code for that. I just didn't know if people knew that. So I guess personally, I'm in support of that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Did I miss? Yeah. Oh, I'm coming around. 4. Okay.
So without having majority, the next proposal would be to go with the staff recommendation, but to have more prescription about what happens in that anywhere from 10 to 20 foot wide strip between the public street and the building in those areas.
Looks like we've got 6.
And is the prescription mostly the concern about allowing green, but avoiding it, a more suburban landscape, as you said, the Cruise Way effect? So you want to make sure it's not just ivy or arborvitae. And
Personally, I would say I'm more supportive of kind of the image or slide that you showed for PCC.
Right.
So another thing that comes to mind when we talk about these standards is Macadam Avenue, which is a beautiful street, but it's dead. No pedestrian wants to walk along Macadam.
That's because no one lives there, though.
Well, the
There
building-
is a neighborhood right there. What it is there's no businesses that actually build to that line. I mean, I've kind of spent a lot of time studying it, and everybody kind of pulls back in landscapes, and then they put their door on the backside, right? And so there's no businesses that really
Which wouldn't be
front it.
allowed in this case.
I get it, but I mean, it's just it's just, that's what comes to mind, and so that's what I'm concerned about.
So we can go back and look at that and come up with something to test with you in the thing we bring back, and you can either give it a thumbs up or you can change your mind again.
Perfect.
Okay. So C, we're skipping over. D,
Well, we should just probably ask,
Okay,
does anybody want to discuss item C?
I just want to quick, are we even mentioning LEED Gold would we even be mentioning LEED in the code? I know we're saying something similar to LEED Gold. Is that actually in the language of the code?
yeah, the language of the
Or would you say
code does.
building efficiency, blah, 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 just describe it?
It's set up, I'd have to go back to the exact code section, but it does not spell out LEED in the code. The LEED is not mentioned in the code. The way this would work will be that BPS, sustainability folks will work with us to develop some standards that they think are appropriate to achieve those kinds of goals, but not be specific to that standard.
So this is a little bit like the TDM proposal in that there's an admin rule that would be developed that would spell
Just to
this out.
clarify the question, the word lead is not in the code.
I want to just double check. I can almost completely assure you that it's not. And between now and the next time, I could remove it. Right?
Well, maybe
we heard
that's more the
enough.
question, is there consensus to not have LEED in it?
Just check.
And
I
if so-
believe it's not.
I don't think it is in there.
We want a performance standard, not a brand.
Right.
Yes.
Yep.
I think we intentionally wrote it so it's not a brand, but we started out with commentary that said it could be a variety of things, and some of those other standards said they weren't ready to be part of this yet, so that what was left was LEED.
Yeah, what the code says is, and this only applies in the area where we're providing for the planned development bonus, which would allow additional height on those large sites if you have affordable housing, some kind of an open area or plaza, and meet this energy efficient building standard. So it just calls for all buildings except for accessory structures within the planned development site must meet the energy efficiency requirements of the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability. And then in our commentary, we talk about modeling or developing standards that are similar to the LEED standard.
And
I get it out of the comment. I mean, we heard so much testimony. Some of it was in the context of Central City, that it's just not appropriate for
Okay.
the city to rely on a single private sector standard when there are other private sector standards that numerous people testified or have their own strengths and weaknesses.
And again, this case was a little different than Central City, where we were originally proposing that there'd be a set of rules and that vendors like LEED or whoever else could apply to be certified to be part of this. We ran into barriers with that because some of them weren't interested.
we'll come back with this, with the specific language. We still may run into an issue of that we are not allowed to just say that it needs to meet some energy efficiency standards, because that could be interpreted as building code, and we can't go beyond the energy code in the state of Oregon as the city separate from, so we'd be open to legal challenge. And that's why we started with the LEED in the first place. So we'll go back and look at language that works from the city attorney's point of view that gets to what we're trying to do, which what I'm understanding is we want to encourage energy efficiency as an option in order to get additional bonus FAR. Okay.
7.4, I'm sorry, 7.1D is the next one that I have on here.
And I just wanted to make one brief, quick comment, hopefully, in that I've got concern that since this has been implemented, it's my understanding from Barry, and he could double check, but that nothing has been built that has the double step down in Sandy. And so my question is that due to the development standards that are now in place, or design guides that are still in place that are requiring this, or is there something else going on? And so in some future project, I'm just advising we take a look at understanding those double step downs. That's all.
Okay. All right. Any more discussion on that? Okay.
So E and F, I think we want to take as a bundle
together, yeah.
together, and this came from a variety of testimony about the concern about the sites that we made turned from non-conforming into allowed commercial sites, and they used to be, as non-conforming sites, have some hours of operation limits, and we had proposed putting those similar limits in the CM1 smallest scale zone for sites that are under, I think we started with 7,500 square feet, and we got testimony to increase that to 15,000 because some of those sites, like the one in Irvington, were potentially going to lose that requirement. We also got testimony that people nervous about, now that we've made them mixed use to make them conforming, would people take advantage of that and tear them down and build an apartment house without any commercial? And so we started talking about, and that actually was a lot of testimony at council with regard to a couple sites that you guys didn't get so much of, but the council did. So we started looking at, well, could we require ground floor commercial in some of those CM1 sites that we'd made conforming to solve that problem? We're reluctant to do that citywide because there's a lot of CM1 and not all of it is in places where we necessarily need that. And then we also got some suggestions from some of you. Where we'd like to take this is the idea that for a small number of sites, there may be a fifth zone that's appropriate that would be applied to particularly the small sites that are in single-family neighborhoods that used to be non-conforming that we turned into conforming, to create kind of a special zone for that situation. And we've tentatively called it CR to indicate that it's kind of a commercial/residential hybrid. And that we would apply that very sparingly. It's not a smaller version of CM1 to be sprinkled out throughout the city. It's more of a special purpose zone for those commercial sites that are pretty much surrounded by residential use, where we want to have a tighter limit on the scale of that commercial development. At the same time, we also don't necessarily want those commercial uses to go away and be replaced by dense residential development because they're kind of in the middle of single-family zones. So we had proposed that if the commercial goes away in this new zone, that the density be limited to more of a middle housing R2.5 density. So we want to float this idea of a new zone that we would add into the mix for this limited number of sites at this stage as a solution to these two issues.
I don't have much more to add to that. I think Eric's covered it pretty well. I put the parameters up on the screen behind you, and it's basically the maximum height on this would be 30 feet. So you probably could not get a full 3-story building in there efficiently like you could in CM1. Maximum FAR would be set at 1-to-1. The idea there is that you'd at least want to have, if you wanted a fair amount of lot coverage, you could have some apartment above the shop. Would not offer any bonuses in this particular zone. Not really trying to create additional opportunities here, limiting the size of the commercial uses to 5,000 square feet. That's very much like the existing CM1 zone, or CN1 zone, excuse me, and like the CM1 proposal. And then limiting the hours of operation, we'd pull that out of CM1, put it in CR. And then again, as Eric said, limiting the density. If you don't have a commercial use on the site, if you tore it down or you just pulled out of that operation, your density is limited to 1 per 2,500 square feet of site area.
And there's about, what would you say, 20 or less sites that, do we have a map?
I have a map. I take this with a grain of salt because we're still working on it. We'll bring you the detail next week, but it's kind of hard to see, but those red circles circle the sites that we initially thought might qualify for these. So there's about 15 or 20 of them on there. There's not a lot. It's a limited number. The district liaisons are looking back at the map to see if there are other sites that would meet the criteria that are either non-conforming or that are maybe even conforming, but they're in the context of this neighborhood that we might propose to you.
We've also talked about not applying this zone on
corridors,
major city streets, so that would be no major traffic streets or major district collectors. It would be really for those local service streets that happen to have a commercial node, or forgetting the name of the second tier up in street designations.
Neighborhood collector.
Neighborhood collector, but not the district or city or major city traffic streets. Those would be still more of a CM1 zone.
And I'll just conclude by saying the reason we went in this direction, I mean, we did hear some in testimony, and I think even you all mentioned that this might be a possibility, or some folks did. But when we started to try to build a code around trying to isolate these other sites, it became, kind of a board game for BDS to figure out where those were. They struggle with potentially implementation of the hours of operation anyhow, but this would at least give them a clear indication of where those places are, and by the zone, rather than description in the zoning code that tells you to go figure out which lots are surrounded by residential and how big they are.
So I like this approach. Very creative solution to the problem. I'd be a little bit careful. I think the canonical example in Irvington is on 15th, isn't it? And that's below the classification threshold that you're
Neighborhood
proposing?
collector in that
Okay.
case, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, 15th is the neighborhood collector. 33rd, on the other hand, is the district collector, so this wouldn't apply on 33rd, or it wouldn't apply on Killingsworth or Broadway or some of those kind of streets.
We'll double check all those. Yeah.
Well, I like this. Sorry. I like this proposal a lot too. I mean, I think that Portland could really use we call it the Jane Jacobs zone. The corner store that can't blow up into a 3 or 4 story building with bonuses. And I would only ask if I appreciate the staff's taking the time to throw this in at the last minute, and would love to have this as an option through an appropriately rigorous process, like a zone change, to happen in residential zones to be created, so we don't just have these historic examples of it. And I would suggest that it be sort of at the level of a zone change, but not a comprehensive plan change. And I know staff has already started looking at this, because I think there's a good place for neighborhood market kind of stuff in our town, that we could use more than 15 or 20 of these spots in the city.
In the short term, this would just be for places that already have a commercial designation, but we have talked about, would there be a way to provide an expedited process for creating a node like this where one didn't exist, if you were far enough away from any other commercial, and not just, we wouldn't want to create a whole new center through random actions, but we may want to allow a more, some of the newer neighborhoods to get this kind of finer grain of commercial.
So in applying this, would this apply only to the dozen or two existing uses of this nature?
At the start, yeah, but as Eli said, once we create it, it may create an opportunity to add this when we do planning elsewhere.
I would say let me bring back the complete list to you next week, and we'll identify there may be a couple of existing commercial zones where the district planners team feel that it might be more appropriate to apply this than the larger scale CM1, but we'll identify those if that's the case.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Teresa.
I think this is a good solution. It allows some of those smaller businesses that would have been non-conforming to be able to operate in a better way, get financing and all of those kind of things. So, good job.
So we generally on the right track here. We'll come back with the map next week, and you'll see code.
No, I think it's great. Great proposal.
Great. Then the last one on 7.1 was G, unless there's anything else people want to talk about.
Let me just mention what G is, and really G is just more of a clarification. The last iteration of this memo that you saw was a little bit unclear whether we were asking you to consider it or what we were doing there. And we got testimony about from community members suggesting that we ought to modify our ground floor window requirements to require that the windows are placed in an area where pedestrians can actually view into the sites, and concerns about making sure that they're within the realm and range of heights from adjacent sidewalks so that they're usable windows. And so we're planning to revise the code, which we'll bring back to you in a couple of weeks, or you'll see it sooner than that, but we'll be talking about it in a few weeks. To basically move forward with the testimony that you heard on that topic. So we are proposing to amend the code to recognize that. We just want to be clear about it.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks.
Moving on then, we do not have anybody who's flagged anything under 7.2. So I want to just call that question now. Is anything under 7.2 need to be discussed, or should we move to 7.3? I know Commissioner Houck had flagged the Forestry Commission item.
Good. I think we can move on to 7.3.
Okay. 7.3, this was just the issue of how the mixed-use zones will relate to Title 11.
And maybe I should just offer a quick explanation of why this is in here. We did get testimony from the chair of the Urban Forestry Commission talking about his perspectives on mixed use and concerns about making sure that we were coordinating with urban forestry on amendments to Title 11. And if you recall, in the proposed draft, we have a long list of code sections in Title 33 that we need to amend to sync it up with other sections of Title 33 with the mixed use, because it'll create changes, and we'll bring all that back to you as we start modifying those. So we'll have to reconcile FARs and height limits and just labeling for many of those. But other codes like Title 11 trees also have references to the existing zones. And so we had indicated in our document that we needed to reconcile that with Title 11 with Title 33 so that they're in line. And so that generated some discussions. There's some exemptions for certain zones in Title 11 in the most urban zones, C, S, CM, EX, and EX for sure, and I may be missing one, where the tree standards are not required at all. With the new mixed-use zones, we are requiring some landscaping in all of the zones. There's different options in the inner neighborhoods, and there is the opportunity for 100% lot coverage. So we are going to work with urban forestry to try to reconcile that in the code so that it's clear when the tree requirements of Title 11 would kick in relative to the new zones and when they wouldn't. I think, moreover, urban forestry had a concern that they want to be looking back at and reflecting on code amendments themselves for Title 11, and they wanted to make sure that we're in sync with them, and we've committed to kind of working with them through the process. But we have talked to the chair and to staff, but not the commission overall, since we did some briefings with them probably about a year ago. So,
Does this conversation also apply to strip size and like exemptions from planting trees, or is this just broadly mixed-use zones? Because I know there was there was a decision to exempt smaller strips from having to plant trees around them, I think.
Yeah.
Know more about that?
Correct.
And a lot of areas are urban center, which needs trees, as well as outer neighborhoods.
I'm not completely sure which ones you might be referring to there. I think that in terms of our discussion with urban forestry on this is just strictly about which zones would require it and how much, is there a threshold in terms of how much building coverage can be on a lot where you'd be not required to do it versus required to do it.
And it is mostly, in this case, about planting trees, because the tree coverage in mixed-use zones is currently pretty low.
Right.
It's pretty rare that there is a tree.
Yeah, I strongly feel that BES should be involved in that conversation, because I know we've gone back and forth, and one of the issues is, in terms of the urban forester, I think there's a tendency to say you can't plant a tree there because it's not going to survive. Bureau of Environmental Services has a different opinion, as does Friends of Trees. So I think at least including BES in that conversation will be important.
I would also say that the more flexible landscaping standard in the mixed-use code does include an option that's intended to create a space for larger trees, and that's we did that with Title 11 in mind.
Right.
We have to go back now to Title 11 and figure out what that means for that code.
Anything else? No, that's good.
So we're on to group of topics 7.4, and
just an umbrella statement about that is that Barry's team has had a number of ongoing meetings with BDS staff on this, and our intent, I think, at this point is, as we get direction from you, both tonight and in previous sessions, we're trying to finish up the next iteration of the code, and it's our intent to provide them a copy at the same time we provide you, or maybe even a few days sooner, so that by the 23rd, when you have your vote, our goal would be to have BDS nodding with us that they're satisfied with the progress we've made on that. So we're anticipating another conversation with them once we have the final code written. But Barry's staff has worked through a lot of those details, and there's a few things listed here, but the broader picture is we're intending them to look once more at it and see what we did with their comments.
And just in general, I think some of the decisions that Planning Sustainability Commission has tentatively made about step backs, things of that nature, have resolved a lot of the issues that were on BDS's list. So those code changes have largely been resolved. So we've addressed some of those, and we are working, as Eric said, with them on many of these as well. So, but I will, I guess, do we want to call to see if folks have, I think item B has been identified. Are there any others that folks want to talk about?
And hopefully I can make this quick. Just in general, I think item B, I get your intent, but I do think having a code and a building code requirement and a zoning code requirement that are kind of so similar and kind of at a property line setback is confusing. So I would tend to just side with BDS and stick with the 3 feet. I do think it'd be interesting, I guess, to know how many people actually don't set back more when they're trying to put windows and things like that in that situation. But
I think
that's just my kind of 2 cents. Having to work with both codes, it's a little bit of a weird one there.
And I think the slide that we have up here is the one, and we showed this to you when we really did the initial presentation. That was kind of our example of where somebody's setting back those windows. I think to the minimum was the issue, and that was part of what was driving this discussion. But we have had feedback from BDS that the standards are close enough that we ought to just go with the building code standard as well. So
does that mean that on the places that have a 0 property line setback, you have to sort of have like a reverse bay or something?
yeah, you'd have to inset your window 5 feet minimum, and you could do it as the top diagram. Based on our proposal, it would be the way the top diagram shows, where you just do the bays, or you could set the whole facade back 5 feet, or big portion.
Honestly, they're both horrible conditions. Whether it's
It doesn't
3
provide
feet or
for much
5
light
feet.
and air. Yes, yeah.
But then the area between the window and the wall can be your open space? As a deck?
Could.
Okay.
Well, maybe.
A mini deck.
Yeah, there you go.
I think-
More open space.
I'm not sure that counts for a minimum dimension. I think we have a minimum dimension on that.
Well, at the ground level, it could be open space or part of the setback or the tree planting too.
This is probably obvious. The street property line, there's no setback there, right?
No.
No.
This would only be a interior property line.
My apartment, my bedroom window is 2 feet from the neighbors, so I would support any amount of setback. It's a light shaft.
I'm the only one who gets to work with probably building codes, so I think they're all good with the way you have it, Barry.
Okay.
Any other 7.4 items? Otherwise, as I said, we'll basically be back here on the 23rd with the final code, and hopefully we'll have a BDS person in the audience giving kind of a general nod that they're satisfied with our progress.
Or some kind of a recognition. So 7.5 is a topic that we want to touch base on, and I think I'm going to have
Okay.
describe this one.
The issue here is this is being driven a little bit by the recreational marijuana legalization. And what happened there is that currently agriculture, which is what you get counted as if you're growing plants for sale, unless you're a nursery, which is a slightly different thing. But agriculture is an allowed use in the EX zone today because it's an employment zone, but it's not, it's conditional use in the other commercial zones. And so as a result, in the EX zone today, we're getting a lot of these places permitted right now. You'll see them pop up on a lot of places with EX zoning. And as we shift that EX zoning to CM3, unless we make some kind of adjustment to the code, we'll be creating a whole bunch of non-conforming establishments because agriculture wouldn't be automatically allowed in those zones. So we're setting up kind of a confusing geography of where this kind of establishment could be. It's not all just about the marijuana issue, because it's also, theoretically could be a mushroom growing operation or a basil plants, or I brought up basil twice, but the legal kind.
Good clarification.
any kind of
Tomatoes.
wheatgrass, tomatoes, whatever. but,
Hydroponics.
hydroponic tomatoes. So indoor agriculture in our minds functionally is a little bit like any kind of manufacturing use. And currently in these zones, we've got an allowance for small-scale manufacturing as long as it's indoors and is, doesn't have display and manufacturing outside. So there's a logic to treating this a little bit more like that. We also have on our eye on the issue of the industrial land supply, which is where agriculture is allowed, and we continue to be concerned about that industry eating up a lot of the scarce industrial land. And so we're trying to make sure that we allow in commercial zones some level of reasonable use of this kind of operation so that people don't buy up all the flex space in the industrial zones to do this. So our recommendation is that the CM3 and the CE zone, that we allow that agriculture use up to the same limits that we apply to manufacturing uses in those zones, so that we're being consistent there. We're not creating too many non-conforming uses, and we're taking the pressure off the industrial zones because of our industrial supply issue.
Isn't the industrial land going to be cheaper rent, though?
In some cases,
But not
that could be true, but fewer customers in a lot of those cases because the CE zones tend to be higher traffic commercial streets. So a lot of these uses are being set up with a retail outlet as well, which wouldn't always be allowed in the industrial area. So what's happening now is people can get the retail outlet, but if they put a plant in the store, it becomes classified as agriculture, and that sort of is a weird cutoff.
But we get the other type of agriculture in the industrial zone? Is that actually happening? So if you're
Clarify
growing
what you
basil
mean.
plants, do you actually see people growing basil plants?
There are a few indoor sort of, hydroponic herbs and vegetable kind of operations in town that are not just the
So
marijuana.
CSAs wouldn't qualify, I take it.
CSAs,
They wanted to
that's
grow
sort of a
outside.
different issue, and we already changed the code to allow the small scale garden growing kind of in residential zones and distribution through CSAs. That's not part of it.
You can start a hydroponic CSA, Mike, and you'll be okay.
Yeah, if you wanted to.
In my neighborhood land use meeting, a woman came, she had a grow operation on a commercial property and was being required by the city to go through a type 3 land use process for conditional use, which in a commercial zone, which is definitely not a CM3. I'm sure it's not destined for that designation. So my inclination is I'm not sure why you can't do agriculture in a commercial zone, or why the city wouldn't allow it in the just CM3 and not the other zones.
We were trying to match sort of what's currently allowed, and in the CE zone is the zone that has the biggest prevalence of sort of the flexible and light industrial warehousey kind of space.
And CE, you could do a drive-through pot dispensary, right?
Well, we did clarify that
But you'd have to have a lot of ground floor windows.
actually you couldn't, because we asked that question, and the state licensing rules precludes the drive-through idea, apparently.
So this would be in the first floor of CM3s?
Yes, yeah, well, it wouldn't have to be on the first floor.
25% of the floor area
We allow up to 1-to-1 floor area, yeah.
on the first floor?
Well, it could be, I guess it could be anywhere within the building. but
Often
up
it
to
would be the
1-to-1.
only floor because the rents are going to be more likely for this to happen in an existing flexible warehouse space that's being converted.
Has any thought been given around the use of pesticides in these areas? I mean, it's different doing it in a commercial zone rather than doing it first floor of a residential zone, even though there's a limited set of pesticides that are allowed in marijuana cultivation. Has that been looked at, or issues of heat generation or ventilation or any of that other?
We have
stuff?
not looked at any of those issues. The heat issues presumably is kind of part of the sort of electrical building safety kind of stuff, but we did not look at operations.
So that just really becomes a practical issue for the person who's proposing to set up the operation.
Could someone remind me of the logic of not allowing agricultural uses in commercial zones? And I'm thinking more about areas that have not been developed, like that are parking lots. I mean, currently our allowed interim uses for commercial zones are like parking lots or used storage buildings or things that are much less dense than what could be allowed there. And I don't know why we wouldn't allow agricultural use to be. It's obviously not going to be a. Anyway, why that it's not an allowed use?
In general, agriculture inside the urban growth boundary is pretty restricted because of the statewide planning laws that the whole black and white concept of agriculture being in the country and the city being reserved for urban uses. So,
Right. But as a bridge use, I mean,
That sounds familiar.
it's allowed as a non-conforming use. So there
And
are
conditional
examples of
use,
existing agriculture that's been there for years. The example is the Rossi Farm site is a non-conforming existing agriculture use. But if they were buying that property today, they wouldn't be able to start that.
I'd rather have agriculture than parking lots as like a holding use.
But like
Yeah, but
cows next to
along
single-family
those lines,
residences don't go
there
there.
has been a food policy group, and I'm curious if they've been engaged at all in this conversation, because there is interest. I mean, it's actually what was just described was comparable to the parks and green spaces issue 30 years ago. There was a very bright line. We cannot have too many parks, or we can't protect too much green inside the city because of the urban growth boundary. And I think urban ag is really very comparable to that in terms of the philosophy of no, ag is out there, when in fact there are definitely good arguments to have more. That's why I brought up CSAs, more food production near where the people live.
That's allowed.
So I know some other cities are looking at this too, in terms of looking at both city-owned land and other lands. And I don't know, 10 years ago, we had a project called the Diggable Cities Project, where we went and inventoried all of the city-owned land where there was like at a half acre or bigger, larger, that could actually be an opportunity for urban agriculture. And so I'd like us to potentially go with what we have here and consider that, and then should we look at sort of a planning and sustainability project, potentially with some other partners, about what are some other urban agriculture opportunities, including using marijuana growing or others in either existing parking lots or other open space.
I guess there should be a placeholder, because we did do this with the residential areas. We said you can grow stuff there. I mean, it's a
Yep.
bridge use to some future redevelopment. It'll never
Yep.
be the highest and best use of the
Exactly.
property. So I guess I never understood when that happened why we didn't pick up commercial too, because there's other commercial properties that languish.
Good one.
So I don't want to belabor this for now, but it seems like the logic that we use for the residential zones would also apply to underutilized commercial zones.
So just to clarify, the project we did a couple years ago to legalize the smaller scale market garden thing did apply in all zones. So there is a
Right.
carve out for
That's why I didn't understand
small
why-
scale urban agriculture, but not at the way it's written and the way that it's set up does not cover this kind of agricultural use. It's not a food product in the same
Unless you
way.
make a brownie, yeah.
It's an ingredient.
Eric, is marijuana wholesaling an ag use, or is it industrial?
Well, it's both. Some of it is, if they're selling it if they're selling it wholesale and don't have a retail shop, it could be just agriculture. If they have a retail shop, then it's
You
retail.
can't under the state law. You're one or the other. You're either a dispensary selling retail, or you're a wholesale, basically warehousing. My question is,
Correct, but
Where
there's
do
a
you-
threshold. The thresholds are different, and the way the state does it has to do with the square footage of your growing footprint, and our thresholds are any kind of plant being on site triggers you to be agricultural.
there's a separate license under the state law for wholesaling.
Yeah.
Basically, you're warehousing, and then you're selling to the retailers. You're
Correct.
a warehouse. So I'm wondering if people are in an industrial zone, they want a warehouse, does it matter that they're warehousing marijuana? Is that any different than any other warehouse use?
No, but if they're growing the plant there, it's
Then
agriculture.
So if they're strictly what the state calls wholesaler, you're warehousing, and then you're trucking it to dispensaries.
Correct.
Then it
That's
doesn't matter, you're not an ag use, you're like any other industrial.
Exactly, but if you're if you're growing or if you have retail,
I
then
gotcha.
you
Right.
can be bounced around a couple different zoning categories depending on what combination of things you have.
So in general, we have support for staff's proposal, looks like,
And as Susan noted, there may be
Yep.
more work to do on the.
which I would support that. I mean, it
Okay.
makes sense to me to study further at a later date.
Okay.
We're still, believe it or not, on time.
Another
here,
day.
Another day.
So the last topic is topic 10, which is the design overlay zone. And we bring this back to you as you had a number of requests for application of the design overlay zone, primarily in the Selwood neighborhood. Selwood Neighborhood Association testified requesting it, and then you had a number of community members, individuals requesting that we apply the design overlay in Selwood. And what we wanted to do with this memo was just to outline our rationale for where we applied or proposed applying additional design overlay zones and why we had not applied it to Selwood, and then find out what the commission wanted to do. We are not recommending to expand the design overlay zone beyond the areas identified in the proposed draft, and I'll review how we came to that conclusion and why we applied it where we did. We are saying that we are in the middle of a design overlay zone assessment process, which is looking at the design guidelines, design review system, and design standards that are in place in the city of Portland, which have fallen to some criticism and some requests for improvement. So that whole process is going on. We did have testimony or at least informal conversation with the BDS and the design staff concerned about over applying the design overlay zone until the project is done and we have more of a solid sense of the direction of design review in the future. Despite that feedback from them, we did propose to apply the design overlay zone in some key places. And this map shows you, just as a refresher, in red, and it's also in your memo, so you don't have to actually go to that, but it's in your memo in black, where we chose to apply the design overlay zone in areas where it's not applied now. So design overlay zone is applied in a number of different places, and obviously the central city and Gateway as a regional center, but in a number of other areas where we've done specialized planning, places like Hollywood District, St. John's Town Center, the Interstate Corridor. It's applied in places on the west side, such as Multnomah Village, that went through their own planning processes a while back, applied in places in East Portland along the light rail lines. And it's a combination of places where we expect to have intense development happening in neighborhood areas where it's much larger in scale than the norm. So 5 or more story buildings, oftentimes much more than that, up to 10 or 12 in Hollywood's case, or in areas where there's a particular character that you're trying to preserve or protect. And that might be more of the case in places like Multnomah Village, where you don't have the height allowances, or in St. John's, where you don't have the height allowances, but you do have kind of a building stock. And we also have historic design review applied in some different areas like Irvington and different areas throughout town, Ladd's Addition and whatnot. But
that's the shading on
the shading on that map, the hatching. So what wasn't subject to design overlay zone were many of our areas within the mixed-use urban center designation, which are generally the closest in neighborhoods, where we are applying a variety of different zones and allowing up to the highest intensity CM3 zones. So those are places like Hawthorne, Belmont Division, Burnside Street, and also our town centers, which are also designated as mixed-use urban centers. So places like 122nd and Division, the Midway Town Center, is a place where we expect to allow up to the larger or eligible to have the higher, larger scale buildings. That includes places like the West Portland Town Center on Barber and a few other places in town. But the areas in red are areas in that mixed-use urban center designation where those bigger, larger scale buildings are allowed that we hadn't applied the design overlay. So staff proposed to apply the design overlay in those areas in response to the fact that we expected more development to happen in those areas, many of them in the nearer term time frame, and they had the allowances for the more intense zoning. We did not apply design overlay or proposed to apply new design overlay zones in neighborhood centers and other areas throughout town where it wasn't already applied. And the thinking there was that those neighborhood centers and areas, and the dispersed areas included, were not eligible for the higher intensity zones. The CM3 was not an option for those zones. They were not getting the additional height. So the way it played out was we said that in those neighborhood centers, we would not apply the design overlay. And in those areas, if you have the CM2 zone, you're also not eligible for the 5th story, because that's in keeping with the idea that they're lower scale areas. In areas like Division or Belmont, or Hawthorne, where you've got the CM2 zoning, you would be eligible for the 55+ foot height limit, the 5-story buildings. So that was the way we set that up. And having done that, Selwood did not end up with a design overlay zone, although it is an area of town that is seeing fair substantial amount of new multi-story, 4-story mixed use and residential development, and does have a number of resources that are on the historic resources inventory. But our rationale for not applying it there was based on this greater logic of applying the D in the mixed use urban center areas.
Chris?
So obviously, pay attention when that many people testify to the same idea, right? And if I try and peel back that intent, I would guess, and maybe I'm wrong, but I would guess that what those folks are trying to do is protect the character of their neighborhood. It sounds like that perhaps, given that they're not going to get the kind of intensity that you've used as a threshold to get design overlay, is a better path for them to pursue an historic district to get some kind of design review? Should we give them that advice and say, go forth and advocate?
I'm not sure that that's necessarily the approach that they would want to take, or that we would advise either. I'd have to, I'd probably want to check in with our historic resources folks to find out what their thoughts are on that. Our suggestion is to at least let the design overlay zone assessment process kind of play itself out to see where we end up. We might end up with a set of standards that actually we could apply more broadly, and maybe would be workable in more situations, in which case not only would we want to maybe look at Selwood, but we might want to look at some of the other neighborhood centers that we've identified for opportunities. But that's our recommendation at this point in time. I don't know if Eric has any other thoughts on historic.
We had some controversy associated with that not too long ago, right? People who got historic designation, and maybe not everyone realized all the implications associated with it and all the added expense when you want to revise your house.
Sure.
So I wouldn't advise
Irvington
anybody
example,
to do that.
Yeah.
It's neighborhood driven, because you have to get a certain percentage of property owners to support it. So
is there any future thought to, like so many of the neighborhoods that have not the necessarily design overlay process, but actually have design overlay standards that are neighborhood specific, that, first of all, there's a number of them throughout the city that all need to be updated, I'd say. But then looking at perhaps, do those get updated? What does that look like? Could they then maybe get to be one of those neighborhoods that has those design standards overlay?
Well, typically a design overlay that's not like in a central area with a high growth is the result of some kind of area specific study where we document the uniqueness and we document what we're trying to protect, and then we develop some kind of set of standards. So
I think one thing that might be really helpful is for us at one of the next meetings to outline very briefly about what is the study we're doing, what's the assessment, what are the next steps after that, after we learn what we learn in terms of rolling out and taking a look at design standards, citywide, so you're grounded in that. Pardon?
I think we're planning on giving that to you next week.
Yeah, we have a memo being developed at a minimum, yes.
yeah, a sort of DOZA overview.
What's the general time frame on the DOZA project? Just years, months?
Years, decades.
Joe's under Bureau of Planning and Sustainability. The study part of it is by December. And part of what we're asking in this review of the design review process is looking at case studies. Does it make a difference? What kind of difference does it make? Is there an administrative burden that is in line with the benefit that it shows or not? And then what do you do to address situations like that? One of the reasons we were reticent to expand design review too broadly, too fast, is right now, especially outside of the central city and Gateway, it's not necessarily delivering results that meet the neighborhood's needs, and it's not necessarily delivering results that are most effective for our development goals too. So we need to, and so much of that understanding or that kind of argument is based on anecdote, really. So we needed a factual basis, and we need to get in and look if it's administration, if it's standards, if it's, that whole thing, and then develop a work program based on which parts of that make the most difference and start to move forward.
So is that months or years?
Oh, the study part of it's December. Recommendations and deciding what to do, and the general acceptance of those recommendations takes a period of time. Like, I expect what comes out of it to require a certain amount of debate amongst the community interested in this. And then the code parts of this, usually take us 12 months minimum. Right off the bat, we know in our work program, built in the project to update what's called the community design standard. So it's a basic tool out in the non-central city parts. We know they need to be updated. The study's going to give us some sign about which parts should be updated, and we're just going to go ahead and do that, because no matter what happens with expanding design review or not, we know those have to be updated. We've
Generally committed to the idea that that's supposed to be happening before this new comp plan goes into effect in 2018. So that's the intent, is that these expanded design review areas that we are proposing will be happening at the same time we put into effect, or close to the time we're putting into effect, the updated community design standards.
So do those new areas get the option of following the community design standards or going the type 3 route?
Yes, and that would be true for virtually every place outside of the central city and Gateway.
Except for I think one of the standards is you're not eligible if you're going over 55 feet. Right. So in some of the CM3 zones where you're getting higher, you might be mostly in the discretionary track.
And we had that discussion when we talked about the step backs the other day.
Right.
Yep.
That's right. Okay. Any other questions, comments? I think that's it. Does that close off all your agenda items?
Let's just to, and we provided that topic 11 so if anybody does have any questions about that, let us know, but I think that should answer your questions about the differences between those zones.
I'm just going to quickly say, Eli has brought up a discussion point or amendment that he's going to want to propose for discussion at a later date, which you can kind of just lay it out. I don't necessarily want to go into it tonight, but if there's other people who are, there are things that are coming to mind on the mixed-use zones that you're going to want to propose amendments, it'd be great to start getting those out and get them in front of Barry and Eric so that we can kind of plan for how to tackle those.
Yeah, especially because we're not going to have that much time on the 23rd to process the final code. So ideally, we can have all that on the table ahead of time so that we're well prepared.
Well, and hopefully we've addressed most of the issues unless there is something new.
The one which we don't need to discuss now, but I can send a little note out related to the affordable commercial FAR bonus, which I've been feeling for a long time is not ready for prime time yet. I think staff at BPS and PDC have had other things to do with their time than to flesh this one out, and I think this is one where the devil really is in the details. So I have a concern of just leaving that to the code writers, and I could share some more with it maybe another time, but I love the idea of it, I should say. I think it's a fantastic idea. It's an idea Portland has been pitched for 15 or 20 years to the Land Trust to have some affordable commercial component. But my concern is that we haven't done it in that amount of time. Few cities have done it. And when they have limited rents, they don't necessarily get the results that they want to get out of it. So I would like to either see it dropped to be brought back when there's actually staff time to give it its due, or figure out a way that it can come back through this body But I've heard that staff probably is unlikely to have a chance to do this, definitely before the 23rd, and probably not before it hits city council either.
Okay, thank you.
I would note that we've not held off on the details of that because of lack of time. We've held off because we don't want to write the details until we get buy-in on the general direction. So that's been our strategy with many of these, is to get the base zone in place and then develop the administrative rules and how we implement it, which wouldn't be in the zoning code in that time between now and 2018. So
Okay.
that's been our approach to a couple of these things. And I know that's been one issue the commission has been struggling with, is at what level do you all review that? Some of that stuff doesn't typically go to the commission.
Good clarity. Thanks, Eric.
Eric, can you clarify what you just said? So you're talking more administrative rules rather than code? You said it's not going to be in the code by the time this takes effect in 2018.
It's not proposed to be in the zoning code. The bonus is, many of the bonuses are set up such that another agency certifies that you've met the conditions of a bonus, and the regulations for how that happens is something that's in another title or in administrative rules. And that's true in today's code. It's true in the past, and we're assuming to some extent in the future. And so this is one where we think we wouldn't want all those details to be in the zoning code, because they annually change in terms of what's practical, in terms of rent levels and different things. And so it would be a PDC program that has its own set of rules and programmatic process that PDC would sign off on. So the thing that's in the zoning code is simply that PDC has signed off that you have met those requirements.
And some basic parameters.
Right, there's some basic parameters, and then in the document that we have, in the back of the document, there's a set of, there's a section of the document that talks about the administrative procedures that still need to be developed for these different things, which is what we'd be proposed to be engaged in during a lot of 2017, assuming that the provision is approved by council. Then there's about a year of work to get all those programs set up to run.
So, I mean, I guess I'll say I agree with that approach. It would not end up with the zoning code anyway. I have a general sense, like with the affordable housing one, that Portland Housing Center is totally capable and has been doing for a long time regulating that stuff. And I have a lack of comfort that PDC could write the cool rules in such a way that you couldn't run a truck through loopholes, or that we might not achieve the goals that are consistent with the consolidated plan. And I'd want to, that's why on that particular item, I think it is appropriate for us to have some details.
Okay. I guess I have a question about, for Eric, in terms of any additional amendments that you're thinking about, and would you like to have sort of we've done this in the past, okay, well, by next week, have called, have sent it to them, have had a discussion to get it, sort of nailed down, so it'll help in terms of our conversation. So if everybody can agree to something like that,
Especially additive amendments. The one Eli brought up, it's easy enough to have a final vote on the 23rd and for
Right.
us to cross something out. But
right, if it's something in addition that we haven't talked about yet, and I know, you're really in it now, and so there may be new ideas. So if you have those, getting those to Eric by Monday or Tuesday of next week.
yeah,
by
by
the latest,
next
would be
week,
awesome.
if you already know of something that's in your mind,
Doesn't mean you can't absolutely come in with the last minute, but I think it'll help our discussions.
after next week, when we give you the actual current language updated to include all these amendments, then you'll want to review it again. And at that point, we'll probably want to set a deadline of some number of days before the 23rd, so that we kind of have a sense of what we're going to talk about and we can develop an agenda. So we'll figure that out by next week and propose that deadline.
Sounds good. Did you have something, Michelle?
Yeah, I just had a quick process question. So when we have something in Title 33 that cross-references another bureau or entity's administrative rule, if I'm an applicant and I don't like the result of that, where do I go?
Usually those rules have some kind of process description of how you object to an outcome.
So it doesn't necessarily go to LUBA, it's some internal.
No, if it's anybody could send anything to LUBA if it meets the test of being a land use decision, but we would try and write those rules in a way that they're clear and objective and not going to fall into the definition of a land use decision.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I do have a
Yep,
question.
Jeff?
So we got, I think I just got this in my email a couple of days ago, revisions to 33-852, which is TDM.
Right.
And TIR, actually, to put it more correctly.
Right.
So I just got this new language.
Right.
We raised concerns when this was brought out to us 3, 4, 5, 6 months ago. We've never really discussed it. I've raised my concerns a few times. We've never really kind of hashed through if my concerns were shared. And now we got some new code language a couple of days ago, and you'd like my revisions. Is this part of what we're adopting on the August 23rd?
Yeah, this is one of the chapters. We gave that to you this week because it relates to the topic that Judith introduced.
Right, but we weren't supposed to discuss
Right,
it in
so-
the context of Title 17.
Right, so.
Do you want me to?
Anytime you have things you'd like to bring up from that, we gave that to, it's going to be in the draft we give you next week too, but we wanted to give you that early because it was related to today's topic.
The mixed-use project is just carrying that piece of code.
So you're stuck with
We're out of sync with the other.
And again, the TDM element from mixed use is simply repeating the provisions that Judith presented to you a few months ago when you talked about that. She didn't. My understanding that we didn't change the substance of that since last time, but the overall chapter was updated to make the correct references to the Title 17 that's been updated.
You have an approval criteria here that I don't think works. I just think it's flat out. So how do I have this? Who should I be discussing this concern with?
Send it to us.
With us, yeah.
Send it to
Well,
us,
we
yeah.
should- I'd rather talk to you rather than.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
start
and we could set up a meeting to discuss that
Or we
if
could
you
just set up a phone time. Yeah, I'd like to walk you through it.
Okay, any other questions, concerns? Doesn't look like it, so we're adjourned.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.